Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music, and it's Gizmo Sunday. So, one of the great things about having a decent sized YouTube channel, I know I'm a cockroach, is I get to review things. Impact Soundworks has sent me Tape Sculptor. It's based on the really kind of popular and free ChowTape simulator. Is that what it's called? I'll look that up. And it goes way further and sounds fantastic. Let's take a look at it. Tape does wonderful things to sound as you print it. Tiny bits of rust glued to plastic. Wow. Hey, listen, if you've seen a few of my videos, subscribe, will ya? It really helps me to have subscribers rather than just all these folks who are watching these videos who haven't checked in. And on top of subscribing, and you should just do it right now, okay? Drop me a line. I love questions. Mostly what we're doing here is, theory, but useful theory for you, theory that you can apply to your sort of your own music, your day-to-day music making. Not really academic, but rooted in all the stuff that they, teach in school. So listen, let's just listen to a few presets, the things that you'd expect. How does it sound on drums, bass, guitar? I was interested in trying it on a more sort of complicated piano reverb patch, since I'm interested in that sort of dreamy ambient piano world. We'll take a look at that at the end. Let's dive in. Here's a Logic drum loop just dragged into the track. And there's Tape Sculptor. I'm going to turn it on. So what's happening? The signal path goes through a filter, which is off, and then there's EQ emphasis, which drives a compressor, tape compression, which is a rather special kind of compression, and saturation. The mix is set to 100%. Looking down at the bottom, and this is really where this plugin begins to shine, we've got a bunch of modules that handle some of the artifacts, the perhaps sometimes regrettable side effects of recording to tape and maybe recording a little bit too hot, degrading it, chewing up the tape, a certain amount of frequency loss, and then wow and flutter, which actually changes pitch. Wow is slower, flutter's faster. And then there's a great delay line that feeds back on itself. Not really long enough for Frippertronics, but it sounds beautiful. Listen, here's the thing that I love about this modeler, and because it's a complicated algorithm. The harder you drive it, the more it responds, and the saturation and compressor starts to act differently. Let's drive it a little bit harder by taking the input up. Now that's a lot, so I'm going to just take the mix back. And now I've got kind of a New York compression tape version of this, right? New York compression is when you have half of this and half of that, and you mix the two of them together. Drive it harder? Sure, why not? And this has really changed the sound of this stupid loop and made it much livelier. Wow, right? Dull. Let's bring the compressor back in. Very happy with that. We'll go to the acoustic guitar loop that I have. So I'll confess that I'm using a little transient processing on this loop to bring up the picks just a trifle because I felt like it wasn't quite enough. But here it is without the tape compressor or the tape sculptor. And let's bring it in. It's a subtle difference. Hitting it pretty hard with the compressor. Let's turn on the saturation. Bias controls the tape bias, which impacts highs. If I turn the bias up, get a little more brittleness, which I kind of like. Let's emphasize the treble a bit more. this a little harder and then take the mix back. We can turn up oversampling, which I think will help this sound. And let's compare. The dry sound, of course, it's a lot quieter. And then the tape sculpted sound. Again, it's like it's replacing things that I might do with EQ and compression, but in a really interesting, specific way, and it's sort of program material specific. Okay, upright bass. A lot of bass in this. And let's bring in the sculptor. I'm going to bring the compression ratio tighter, beautiful. And let's drive the bass a bit more. And we'll hit it a bit harder. I'm actually hearing a little bit of grit there, but I don't mind that, right? And you can see the loss module is turned on. It's going to take some highs away and just kind of gradually, sort of roll off the highs. Azimuth is the angle of the head, and the angle of the head makes a difference in how the tape is read. You may not hear a difference, but do you hear how the stereo picture changes as I shift the azimuth? I'm not sure if that's modulatable. I wonder if it is. Let's turn it off. We'll get more highs. And then bring it back. I kind of like the effect. Let's go on. I've got a couple more things to try before I go to the piano reverb trick effect. Okay, so we've got synth part, sort of an old 80s synth part. What's this going to be like? Well, I feel like I sort of know, but let's listen. It's pretty boring by itself. Now that was interesting. So I've used a preset called EDM Warmer, and I changed it around a little bit. A little bit of degradation, and wow, really changed the sound of the synth in a good way. I suppose we could turn on the delay here and set the feedback so it bounces, and then bring in the mix. That's lovely. Dry. Let's switch the pan around so that ooh, now it's pinging around in a great way. This is terrific. I'm going to turn it off and you'll hear what happens. Kind of collapses and gets less warm. Let's turn the saturation up and hit it even harder. Ooh. It has an almost tube-like quality. So much fun. Oh, last but not least, synth bass line. And this was really interesting because it changes the quality of the sound in a fascinating way. This synth bass is very light and boring in a way. And then let's bring it in. Well, there's a lot of grit in that sound now in a great way. And it's really just a function of the saturation and drive. We could hit it even harder and change the mix. How these two sound together. Here we go. Let's bring in the drums. Thank you, boys. Well, I love tape saturation. And of course, it's not just for drums and vocals and making things hit hard. It can be used in subtle ways. And so I want to go over to playing a piano sound. And this will be a combination of things. It'll be the beautiful felt piano noir into Soundtoy's new super plate. And I'm using a couple of tricks that I learned from my recent work with it to give me a beautiful reverb sound on the felt piano. And then I'm feeding that directly into this Tape Sculptor. And I played around with the detuning and had a good time with this. What you'll hear is a good amount of pitch bend and sort of warbling. I'm using the delay to spread the sound. I'm compressing it. I'm mixing it so that it's sort of a New York compression version of it, a New York parallel processing type of thing. So here's just the piano sound by itself. It's lovely, right? And then bringing in the reverb, we'll hear a different sound. And then let's modulate that using a little bit of tape saturation and the effects that we can get with tape. I like digital gear that acts analog, that you can push too hard, that you can break, that responds in a way that feels lively and animated, that helps my performing. I want a piece of digital gear that acts like a thing rather than somebody else's idea. And, to that end, I wondered, well, what would happen if I pushed it really hard? Well, here's the drive turned, the input drive turned way up, and it really does sound very, very analog in a good way. Well, I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe. Ding the bell. You'll be notified when I do my videos. And I will see you next time.